Welcome to Pollen Weather by Pollen Wise App. It's Monday, June 29th. I'm Chief Aerobiologist Landon Bunderson, and this is the place for daily allergy news and forecasts. Well, the Godzilla dust cloud came to visit the U.S. this weekend. Unfortunately, we didn't see any neat-looking large particles like diatoms, pollen, or mold. All we saw was this very fine dust. But let us know in the comments if your asthma or allergies were affected. Let's jump into the forecast, and then we'll talk about grass pollen. But first, the forecasted high pollen levels for today. Some windy conditions in Utah, western Colorado, western New Mexico, and Arizona are going to push levels up again today. A few other spots in central Texas and eastern California will be in red pollen conditions, but for the rest of you, things are looking pretty great. Now let's take a look at forecasted highs for mold. Mold is going to be high in basically the same places that pollen will be high. This is thanks to those windy conditions. If you add precipitation to the top of the forecast, you'll notice that there are some large systems in Montana, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. Smaller systems dot the country, and remember, a quarter inch in an hour can clean out your air and really make things a lot more bearable for allergy sufferers. So even if we're predicting high pollen in your area, if you get that quarter inch of precipitation, things are going to look a lot better. Air quality looking pretty darn good around the country. Remember, if you live in an urban area, you'll want to check your city or county air quality report to make sure conditions are safe. Windy conditions around the western states, those green spots are going to be quite gusty and at risk for high pollen and mold conditions. Going to be cool in the west and extreme northeast, and a bunch of hot air is trapped in the Midwest thanks to a wacky W-shaped jet stream. For the grass pollen season, there is something that you can look for on the grass flower that will tell you whether or not the grass is pollinating. If you remember anything from biology class, you might remember that the part of the flower that produces pollen is called the anther. The anther usually looks like a small flag. It's often yellow, orange, or red. A single anther can produce up to 10,000 pollen grains. And a single grass inflorescence, that's a group of flowers on a single stalk, that can produce 1,500 anthers. So multiply that together. On the high end, a single grass flower stalk can produce 15 million pollen grains. A square meter of grass, that can produce over 2 billion pollen grains. That's a meter by a meter, about a yard by a yard. So how many pollen grains does it take to get into the very high, the red part of the Pollen Wise Index? Well, it's a measure of concentration. So to help you visualize, if we took a standard bathtub and we put just 450 pollen grains into that bathtub, we would reach the very high pollen level. So if you picture yourself walking around with a bathtub over your head, 450 pollen grains into a bathtub-sized area around your head is enough to push you to the very high level. And remember, I just told you that a single anther can produce as much as 10,000 pollen grains. So if you're allergic to grass, keep an eye out for anthers, and don't let too many of them into your bathtub space. So if you're allergic to grass pollen, you really do need to pay attention whether or not the grass around you is pollinating, because if you get too close, it's really easy to get above 450 pollen grains per bathtub. I hope this will help you avoid a very painful allergy or allergy asthma attack. As long as you can avoid the grass pollen, it should be a pretty good day everywhere today. Remember to download the Pollen Wise app for hourly pollen updates, and please like and subscribe to this channel.